What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to the WinDaily Sports PGA Draft Cast. I'm David Bliski, aka Deep Dive Golf, and these two clowns are Spence, Tee Off Sports, Byron, Model Maniac. I don't know what's going on. Spence jumped on. I was like, why is Kanye West on our podcast? Next minute, Byron turns up with some sort of green screen setup with the Back Nine Bets logo, the wig, the glasses. It's absolute chaos. But big tournament this week, Worldwide Technology Championship, and brand new course to dive into this week. And pleased to be here with my fellow golf experts, Spence and Byron. Spence, how are you doing this week, mate?
I'm doing well. I haven't decided exactly what I am right now. I'm one of three things. I'm either a poker player, which is the standard one. I'm a disgruntled Jets fan, which I think that would make two of us on this show. I'm in hiding right now. Or maybe I've just gone full out where I'm Aaron Rodgers, my darkness retreat, ayahuasca. That's maybe what we're going to go with for this show.
Or fourth, you can be Kanye Jets.
Yeah.
Kanye Jets, I do like that. I do like that play. Hey, Byron, how are you, buddy? It's been a big week in sports for you, and I expect that I'm going to get a hard time given the shrine to South Africa that I'm seeing in the background there.
Yeah, Dave, you know, the last time I was on a show with you, you said that being a Jets fan is a horrible situation. Yeah, we sit 4-3 as Spencer's, repping our brand, and the last thing we saw was South Africa winning the World Cup in rugby, beating New Zealand. So, things could not be going worse for you, and things could really not be much better for me. So everything is good in the world. We had to draft some awesome, there's like three good guys in this field, and then we'll go from there and then see where that takes us. But looking forward to a fun time with you guys, and thanks for having me on the show again. We're happy to be here.
That's awesome, mate. Yeah, no, look, I did. I gave you a hard time we've got a great rivalry going on between New Zealand and South Africa over the years. Crazy to think now it'll be 24 years since the Rugby World Cup has gone to a country other than South Africa or the All Blacks, which is probably not great for the game of rugby, but has been pretty good for the rivalry between those two nations. And look, let's not talk about the game or the referee or the results or some of the decisions that went on, because at the end of the day, the All Blacks, unfortunately, did get beaten by 1 point going down in the final. So for all you Americans, if you want to come see some big hits, rugby's the place. There's no pads, there's no helmets, but there are lots of red cards if you make minor contact with somebody else's head. So bear that in mind. But exciting week this week. Yeah, Worldwide Technology Championship, still in Mexico, but a brand new course. Of course, used to be held in Mayakoba. Live Golf would come in and put an end to that, which is a real shame because Mayakoba is such an iconic course and was a real highlight of the season, even though it was always an alternative event and a slightly weaker field than we'd see on the regular PGA Tour season. The course was absolutely stunning, and obviously a shame that Live Golf and the Saudi money's come in and bought that off them basically and bought the rights to use that exclusively for the next few years. But we get to dive into a brand new course, and the first time that we've seen the Tiger Woods design on the PGA Tour, which will be interesting as well. So the man for the course breakdown is always Spence. What you got for us this week?
So I think it's very important when we look at these courses that we don't have statistical data on to maybe not be so concentrated into certain areas here. So like the answer I would give to that is I think a lot of people have taken on some preconceived notion of how this tournament's going to play. I would rather look and try to find corollary comp courses over anything that you can find on the reverse of that answer. Like I looked into how golfers have performed when given fairways that are 50 plus yards in width during past examples. I think that's a much more impactful answer than pure length. There's going to be considerable elevation that helps everyone here. I still think it's highly conducive that anyone with length will get an added advantage, but it kind of just comes down to that answer across for the board for me here. Like I want to look how somebody's performed on wide open tests. I want easy scoring conditions, how somebody's performed there. These fast fairways that you're going to have turf here, these slower past Paulum sticky greens, the windy conditions. All of those answers for me were kind of more of the route I took than the straightforward penciling in of anything else there. And I know, David, you wanted to talk about some courses that you thought were comp courses to this one, but I think that mixed with kind of this mentality that I'm taking here is more of the way to go than trying to say, okay, this is a distance course with long iron proximity that's needed. Like, we don't have any statistical data to pull from. I can find courses that I expect to play a certain way, depending on the makeup of it, but I don't necessarily want to get like pigeonhole myself into a corner here to where I can't get out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valid point. I think especially if you're playing in large GPPs, I mean, we can take our best guess and do an analysis of what the course is going to pay like. But, you know, for example, we're looking at length and we think that, you know, with the fairways are averaging 60 yards in width, sometimes getting up to like 100 yards in width, depending on the hole. And there's literally zero rough. You know, we suspect that driving distance is going to play a really big factor here in terms of our analysis, but then the fact that there's no rough, say it's super firm and the ball's just running out absolutely everywhere, you know, that fairway may end up playing a lot thinner and narrower than perhaps expected, right? So it's not a bad idea if everyone's taking that narrative that you build a few contrarian lineups to what we expect the course is gonna play. I mean, would that be something you'd suggest, Byron, as well, to approaching this week?
Yeah, I think just keeping it pretty simple from a betting side. You know, you want to go distance, long irons, good putters, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, obviously when it comes to DFS, you want to try and be a little different in the big GPPs. And there's always guys that just pop it off the tee and take care of business elsewhere. So there's always ways to get different, and we'll try and do a good job of highlighting those players as we go.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, I mean, the narrative is often the narrative for a reason, and it tends to be pretty good. But so I'm not suggesting that you build every single lineup contrarian. Like, I think you should still stick to what the analysis says and what we suspect is going to be the case this week. But it's not a bad idea to say, make 10% of your lineups completely different, built on a different narrative, built on something where driving actually perhaps is weighted a little heavily, or where you know, wedges come into play a little bit more than just say long irons, because if it is extremely firm and everyone's finding the fairway, they're all getting a huge amount of rollout. You know, there may actually be more medium short irons than long irons that come into play here as well. So I do think it's worth putting a mix in there.
What courses were you guys using as comps?
Yeah, so I'll throw it to Spence first, and then I'll go through my list as well.
So this is the answer I always give. I'm not necessarily a comp course person with it. I more so try to find specific intangibles from every single venue, from what the course looks like, and pull from there. So I'm not necessarily pulling from one course over another. Like, an answer I would give is I am trying to find golfers who have found success when fairways are 50 plus yards in width historically on it, rather than pinpointing one course where that's the answer. And that's kind of my blueprint in general for this tournament. I found 6 or 7 corollary things that I know without a shadow of a doubt. Like, obviously we don't know what the winning score is going to be. I can tell you what Vegas has the winning score as at the over under. I see 23.5 at most books. We're expecting a birdie shootout. I want to see how somebody performs on easy scoring courses. I want to see how somebody performs in windy conditions. I want to see how somebody performs on this Paspalum type coastal resort style venues with it. So that's not necessarily pointing me in the direction of one course. I'll let David answer that question there for that. But I'm more so kind of just trying to find the brunt of the answer based off of those answers that I've just given.
Yeah, look, I think that's a fair point as well. The Paspalum comes into play for me. I mean, it's such a unique grass type, right? And we see it so rarely on the PGA Tour. So for those who don't know, Paspalum is like this really like sturdy, dense grass. And the reason why it's used on these type of courses is where it's really hot and humid, and then also with coastal kind of vibes, right? Because it's a lot more tolerant to salt. So it will survive a lot more in these type of conditions, right? Where you're getting a lot of sea breeze, there's a lot more salt in the air, there's a lot more salt in the soil, so the grass can survive. And it does tend to be a little bit stickier. The greens tend to be very, very slow, a lot slower than you'd see certainly than like bent grass, which is going to run a lot more pure. And because of that, you do get these kind of like course specialists, right? Who just like can be dreadful the entire year. And I mean like missing like 12 cuts in a row, turn up at somewhere which is a Paspalum course and finish third, right? And that's where I think you can get really interesting this week in terms of targeting some of those guys who just have like dreadful records everyone else, they look like they have zero form, and they're going to show up this week and turn up and be 10th. And so for me, some of those past Balmain courses, I think the Puerto Rico Open's a really good guide. The Grand Reserve course there, which is, again, it's based on distance, but also past Balmain tropical course there. Then we've got the Punta Cana, I think, is another really good guide. Driving distance putting has always been really good there. It's a birdie fest. We're going to see, I suspect, I'd definitely take the over on that 23.5. I think it's going to be more like 28 under is what I'm predicting here. So I do think we're going to get a very low score. And again, it's past Balmain throughout at Punta Cana. Then Vedanta Vallarta, the Mexico Open. So another Mexican course, but again, driving actually was really big there. Long irons were really big there as well. And then putting, again, it was a massive like resort style shootout kind of course. I don't think Bermuda Championship's your worst comp. Driving distance is a little less effective there than at the other courses, but again, it's a tropical course, past Balmain, and tends to be pretty low scoring there as well. For the guys who have qualified for the tournament champions, I think that Plantation course is probably the best comp that you can use. The thing is with this field, right, it's an alternative field. You're tending to get weaker players. How many have actually won a tournament on the PGA Tour and then gone on to play at Plantation is pretty
39.
Pretty low. Yeah, not many. And so with Plantation, the benefit of that is that, as Spence said, there are some elevation changes at this course. There are holes where you're going to raise 40 feet, or sorry, 40 yards throughout the hole. Like there's a lot of elevation changes. Everything's at sea level, so it is going to play the full length. But Plantation also has that mix of really wide fairways and huge greens. Green size here is over 8,400 square feet, so they're absolutely massive. And then on the DP World Tour, I think you can look at a couple of courses like Yas Links and Abu Dhabi Golf Course, both past Balmain, coastal courses, and you're going to get that grass type form from there. And Marco Simone as well, which tends to have, which was the host of the Ryder Cup, which has extremely large green complexes as well, and is very, very heavy on the driver as a performance. So if you want to get a little bit different, I think you can look at some of those DP World Tour players who have been across and then moved over to the PGA Tour. Look at some of the courses where they've played really well, and then that can be a good link in this week. Now, onto the draft. So for the format, standard snake draft here. So we're going to pick 1 through 4 and then back through 4 through 1. So on the turn, you will have the double pick. If you're on position 4 or 1, got to fill in 6 golfers, got to stay within your salary cap, and unique to the show that the audience get to draft a team against the experts. They've been doing really well recently, but unfortunately we have snagged one of their resident experts in having Byron on the show. However, audience, you will be very, very pleased to know that Byron is a man of the people, and he's actually awarded the audience the first pick tonight, followed by Spencer, followed by himself, and then me on the turn in 4th. So we'll go ahead and bring the draft board up, and the audience will be able to begin putting their picks into the chat. Byron, though, while we're just waiting for the picks to come in, anything else that you'd say about the course, or anything that we're kind of failed to mention? Like, I mean, I know you're a numbers guy, right? Like, you love your statistics. So can you maybe like go through your weightings of like how much do you weight driving distance, how much you weight driving accuracy, approach around the green, and putting?
Yeah, I typically keep about 40% of approach play in my model, and then just kind of divvy it out how I expect proximities to go. And I think this week is going to be a lot of 150 yards and out. So that's going to be big time, strokes gained from that range. Long iron players, kind of like we'll get into a few of them here shortly, but that's one thing. And then driving distance, I ramped that up as much as I normally, usually do in a big long hitting tournament, and then pretty much eliminated all around the green play. I don't see people having to chip and putt. On my pod earlier, I mentioned we could see green regulation rates like well into the 80s this week, because these fairways are massive and these greens are massive. Like, these guys are really good. Unless they really tucking these flags, it's going to be very difficult to kind of miss a green, right? Unless these guys are getting ultra aggressive. So that's one way. And then just making birdies and par 5 scoring are a few other normal weightings I've got in there. So nothing too crazy, just a little bit more distance than normal and a bit of emphasis on the long irons.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I mean, just like baseline scoring could be a really good stat this week, right? Like we just you are going to need to, like, if the score gets up to 28 under, I mean, that's an average of 7 under per day, right? So like, I mean, you are going to have to go out and score pretty low. I don't know if we'll get to that 23 under. I mean, look, the books always like set the lines pretty sharp, like that's why they're bookmakers, right? They're not in the business of trying to lose money. They're pretty good at taking money off the majority of people. I just suspect that we'll get a bit lower than that. The course's real defense comes from the wind, and it looks like it's going to be pretty still this week. So like the fact that there's no wind, a lot of those holes facing into the wind are just going to play a lot easier than perhaps they would usually expect. Got a couple of nominations, but we're going to need a couple more names. So if you want to nominate a golfer, chuck it into the chat there, and we can start getting them uploaded into the team there. Otherwise, we'll end up picking one for the audience, and in which case I'll give it to Byron to make that decision. So we'll give it another sort of 10 seconds for somebody to second player there, and if not, we will chuck it into the spreadsheet. Going once, going twice. Byron, Tagala or Aberg?
We'll just do with what came through first and go with Thigala for the audience.
Sahith Tagala. I mean, that could very well be tactical. I mean, if Maniac takes Aberg and third here, then audience, you know who to blame. Spence, thoughts on Tagala and his chances this week?
I mean, this is a highly questionable route that we're going right now, that somebody on this show is making picks for both teams and is trying to make his team better in the process of it. So, I mean, there's major question marks beyond anything else.
Yeah, I mean, look, this wouldn't be the first time that a South African has received help from the referee, right? So Byron, you know, getting a helping hand from me as the moderator of the tournament here by giving him a double dip on the first pick there. But in terms of the Gala, I mean, look, he knocked off that win at the Fortinet, really high scoring contest. It was a birdie fest. He's finally got that win off his back. We've seen his propensity to go low and then keep staying low. He's a mix of long driver, but then excellent short game, really good putter, really good on the chipping, and driving actually tends to be his weakness, right? We know that Tagala can absolutely spray it off the tee, and the fact that we don't think that's going to be that much of an impact this week is promising for his chances. In terms of comp courses, 24th at the Mexico Open last year, 22nd at Punta Cana, so nothing like outstanding, but also like nothing dreadful. He's played in course comps that I consider comp courses this week. 4 times he's made the cut every time. So with that, Spence, we'll move to you for the second pick of the draft.
I mean, I think I've made a miscalculation. I can barely see my screen right now with the sunglasses I have on. And the one thing that I am noticing is every single time, like Byron has no body, but every single time he moves, this green erection of his keeps getting bigger and bigger as he moves closer to the screen. So yeah, exactly. It's growing again over there. So that might be because Obear is still sitting there and Byron has found a way to master the system here. I kind of want to take him for that reason. I don't even know if that's a player that Byron's on. I do know he's the most popular player according to my model right now, but I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to take Beau Hossler. This is a golfer for me where my math projected him 48 spots better with his recent weighted proximity than this long-term baseline that we're looking for. And it kind of reminds me of that Sahith Theegala answer, kind of to just take us into that, back to that choice there. You know, when we saw him at the Fortinet, he was trending with the iron play. He ends up winning the tournament. I think Hossler has very similar mentality here. The upside marks are going to continue when we dive into his tournament leading 19 consecutive rounds of shooting par or better, and his 4 straight top 30 finishes over the opening 4 fall events. He has top 5 grades for strokes gained total at accessible venues, expected par 4 scoring, recent strokes gained total. I think this is a really nice fit for him at a venue where if he's going to pick up his first win, I have an outright on him. I got him at 30-1. I know that's dropped a little bit in the space, more into that 28-1 zone over the last 24 hours, but I think Hossler has real upside.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've been on Hossler the last 2 tournaments. He was included in my picks over at WinDaily Sports and on Twitter at Deep Dive Golf. So, I mean, obviously I've seen mainly what's been happening with his approach, right? Like Hosler, we've known as a long driver, we know he's an excellent putter, and his approach game is generally the weakest element of his game, right? Like, and it's kind of like almost a case of Wyndham Clark. Like, I don't expect him to go on the Wyndham Clark run, but extreme driving distance, excellent putter, can't hit his irons to save himself, and then suddenly he finds his irons and he goes on a run. And I do expect that's possibly what we're going to see from Hosler, especially in 2024. Two great results coming in the weeks that we tipped him. He was 7th at the Shriners Open, and then a couple of weeks later he was 2nd at the Zozo. And then, in terms of comp courses, 10th at the Mexico Open last year. That's his best result on those courses. He has got a few missed cuts in there as well, so do bear that in mind, but certainly not the worst in terms of comp course performance. Byron, what say you on Hosler? And then after that, I'll go into your first pick.
Yeah, I'm just I love where Bo's game's going right now, but at $9,900, I'm just not thrilled about what he gets up to when he gets to the top of the leaderboard when it's crunch time, right? Like, I think that's my only reservation with him, especially at this price tag. I think, you can get away with that a little bit when he's a bit cheaper, maybe in the 7s and the 8s, but the way he's playing, he's not probably going to be priced that way anyway in these kind of fields. So it's a bit of give and take in that department, but I can see where Spencer's going. But, in my opinion, I'm just going to let him have a good finish first, where he kind of shows that he wants to hang around the top of the leaderboard when he's there. And then I'll jump on it. Hopefully it's not too late, but that's kind of my take on Bo. And then just to make the show a little spicy, I'm going to go with Ludwig Aubert, because, you gave me the option to kind of hand him to myself. And as a result, I will be doing just that. He's actually second in my model behind Cameron Young. So I don't really actually feel ultra comfortable about that, but I really like what he's been up to lately. And when you talk about length and accuracy and just ultimate ball striking at a course like this, I mean, does he not fit this profile to a T? So we'll see what he can get up to. Also, I think his opportunity to really win a tournament on the PGA Tour, like Tommy Fleetwood and company, really kind of gets better when he's out of America. I think, he won the BMW Championship PGA there in Europe, and I think, going to Mexico kind of gives him that kind of DP World Tour feel, especially with the kind of field they're putting together. So I think the guy's in ultimate form. Cam Young, I'm not going to pick him, so I'll talk a little bit about him. Maybe you pick him, Dave. But it just seems like coming back after such a layoff, it's what are we really going to be getting from the guy? He could absolutely blow up and just, go shoot 30 under par, because he can absolutely do that on a golf course like this. But I don't know where his game's at right now, so I'm going to go with someone that I've seen play a bit more golf recently.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Aubier's just had such a stunning year. I mean, he's really bursting on the scene this year, obviously. He's clearly the class of the field. I'm probably the same as you, Byron. I much prefer him over Young this week. I think that his floor is just a lot higher. I do think that Cameron Young certainly has the ceiling. Do be careful this week as well. There's Cameron Young and there's Carson Young. So when you're drafting your lineups and you're suddenly like, hey, wow, I've got like 10K of salary left, it may be because you got the wrong Young in your lineup. So do double check that as well. But yeah, of the two, they both got high ceilings. I just think that Obie's floor is a lot higher than Young's. Like if he doesn't finish in the top 20, I'd be quite surprised, to be honest, on a course like this, where he's got, a great opportunity to really let his class shine through. So scandal already in the first round of the PGA Draft Cast, which is, to be fair, pretty common. That's generally the way that we roll. And usually it's Byron at the center of all that controversy. So once again, he's come to the party, caused some drama. Wouldn't expect anything less, and this is what we come to expect on the PGA Draft Cast. So on the turn, I'm not actually going to go up to Cameron Young. I'm actually going to go pretty middle to lower of the board, actually, and go and get some value with my first two selections. The first of those, Cameron Champ, 7,800. Second of those, Nate Lashley at 7,200. I think those are both excellent value at the where they're priced. So Cam Champ, we know that he's an extremely long driver of the golf ball, third longest driver on the PGA Tour this season thus far. We also know what Cam Champ does. Cam Champ comes out, he'll miss 10 cuts. He'll finish like 18th, and then he wins a tournament. He's done it so many times throughout his career. All three of his PGA Tour wins have been done in that regard. On his recent starts, he was 9th at the Sanderson Farms. He was 18th at the Shriners Children's Open. I don't think the Zozo is necessarily his best course fit. So his 59th there, I'm not like reading too much into that either. And then on course comps, Mexico Open, he's had a 6th. He had an 8th in his 2 tries there. So 2 top 10s and 2 attempts. And then at Plantation over in Hawaii, he's finished 11th, 14th, and 31st. So obviously 31st in a smaller field, not great, but the 11th and 14th in a studded field like that shows where Cam Champ comes up to play. So the guy loves past Barlam courses. He loves these tropical fits, and he's showing those trending kind of form lines that we usually expect to see Cameron Champ display just before he comes out and pops off for a victory. In terms of Nate Lashley, he's in quietly good form without like stunning the world. So I think that that's well worth noting. He's in his most recent 8 tournaments, he's made the cut 7 times out of all of those, just missed the cut at the Sanderson Farms. And then other than that, he's on a very, very good run of made cuts there. On his course comps, that's really where Lashley just pops on past Ballum. So Puerto Rico Open, he's played it 3 times. He's finished 8th, 7th, 3rd. Plantation, he played it once. He's finished 19th. Then at Punta Cana, he's got a 4th, a 28th, and a 15th. And then at the Mexico Open, he's got 11th and 39th. So it's like whenever you're on past Ballum, like Nate Lashley is almost the king when it comes to those type of courses. I think at 7,200, he's massive value. And I think that a lot of people are like down on his form at the moment when he isn't actually playing all of that badly. What say you, Spence? We'll jump to you first.
I like the Nate Lashley play. I was probably going to go in that direction myself to open up a little salary. The only concerns I have with Cameron Champ, and I seem to be on my own little island here this week. I mean, I think he's the most popular outright that there is in the space. I understand the distance argument. I understand this coastal answer, the Mexico answer, the Paspalum. Like, there's a lot of top 10 finishes that he's put together in a very limited sample size of golf. I just think he's a very boomer bust golfer still. I'd like to see where his ownership ends up residing before I really make a decision one way or another with it. I have a head-to-head bet against him. I mean, I think that's something worth noting. I think the upside is there if you're shooting for the moon and the ownership is right. I do think that the floor is a little bit lower than expectation, though, just because he is getting a boost in a lot of people's eyes for this distance answer. And when I look in my model on courses that have easy to hit fairways, he actually has a negative regression in my sheet at those sorts of tournaments. So I don't know. I'm probably not going to get on him. I certainly understand why everybody in the space seems to be. I think that he has a lot of upside, and it's kind of like the Luke List answer that I would give of a couple weeks ago. I didn't play Luke List and he won the event, and List had that same boomer bust nature to him, but I'm probably going to be sitting out with Champ, and I will be playing Lashley.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. I think that he's got a really low floor. If Cam Champ came out and missed the cut, it also wouldn't surprise me whatsoever because, you know, as I said, as much as we know the way that he trends, right, he shows up at 1 or 2 tournaments, then comes out and wins. He could just come out and miss the cut, right? Like, it's like he's either on or he's off. So I totally agree on that angle with him. I do think as well, you do have to be mindful of how you deploy him because ownership is very, very high on him. I have him over 20%. I suspect that's where he's going to finish. So he will be highly owned. It's just how you're going to build the rest of that lineup around him. Can you find some other spots to get different? Because he certainly has the upside to go out and win. And I don't think that everyone else in that like $7,500 to $8,000 range has the outcome of like being able to go out and win this tournament. So
I just want to say one thing to that very quickly, because I think you bring up a good point there. Just because somebody's popular in any range doesn't mean that you don't need to, or you need to skip them. Like, there are ways to get different. Just be cognizant of when you play him, you probably don't want to use him next to all the other chalky choices and make a build that is just going to be too difficult. Like, if Champ is your guy this week, go out and use him. Just get like varying different spots to go with it. So I think that's a good point that you bring up. I'm still not going to play Champ, but I agree. There's upside to be found there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about how you use the guy and what's the narrative in terms of the rest of your lineup. So, Byron, any quick thoughts for you on Champ or Lashley, and then you can go into your second pick for your squad.
When I was trying to describe the course earlier, I almost dropped Cam Champ's name, so that was one of the names I had to like cut back on because I'm on outright with him this week, and I think he's he's not necessarily like the ultimate option this week. I think he's just great value on the betting market in the DFS world. I think his prices are just really appealing for everyone at a course that fits him really nicely. So if you're willing to take on that risk, you're golden. Nate Lashley on his big greens, he's really good when it comes to 3-putt avoidance, which I just noticed now. He's like pretty elite in this field when it comes to that. So that's something I think you can almost replace around the green with just 3-putt avoidance on these massive surfaces. And he just does that fantastically. And obviously everything else you mentioned is good to go. I'm going to roll out a guy that's also some solid value. Got him third in my model. He's the #1 par 5 scorer in this field. He's got lots of length. I think Spencer's going to be very pissed when I take him.
Yeah, I'm already upset.
He's Spencer's guy. So I'm going to take Davis Thompson for $8,300. You got the 4 par 5s on this course. I don't think you can do well at a venue like this if you don't dominate the par 5s. He's most likely going to do that this week. He's got incredible length. He's played kind of nicely lately. I think there's a T16 in his recent form. So things like that are just kind of pretty solid for an $8,300 golfer in a field like this. So I don't mind my third-ranked golfer in my model being an $8,300 golfer. So give me Davis Thompson, piss Spencer off, and save me some salary.
Well, 2 controversial picks to start with from Byron. He's come in and he's insulted the All Blacks. He's talked up the South Africans winning the Rugby World Cup, rubbed that in my face. He's gone in, given the audience the pick so that he can take Obeah himself in the third round, in the first round, and then he's gone and stolen off Spencer and annoyed him. So very typical of our guest, Byron Model Maniac. I don't know why we keep inviting him back, other than his superb golf intelligence. But Spencer, tell us why you love Davis Thompson so much this week.
You know, there's a lot of players when we look at the fall season that are trending in the right direction. Obviously, a guy like Bo Hostler would be one of those names, and we've gotten some more upside from him than we would with the Davis Thompson here. 3 top 35 finishes to begin the fall season, but I think Byron said it best. He's the #1 projected scorer in my model on these par 5s. He's gotten this boost historically at these easy scoring courses. Like, obviously, the answer is going to be, can he make enough putts to actually win this tournament? We saw it at the American Express. He went head-to-head against John Rahm, barely lost out there when he got to 26 under par. And really the thing that I like most about him is that he's gained a minimum of 3.8 shots off the tee and approaching each start to begin this year. And then on top of that, he has a 26-spot improvement with his putter over the last 24 rounds. So if he's ball striking the ball and now all of a sudden he's making putts, it's a really dangerous combination for a golfer that has shown upside at these easier scoring venues. I would not be shocked if Davis Thompson ends up winning this golf tournament. Thought that was one of the better values on the board at 50-1 when that opened up. Really like the pick. It obviously puts me in a bit of a hole right now of what to do, but this has just been a rigged draft from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess, and I mean that's all Byron's fault again. But that's fine. Look, I think Thompson's a really interesting play because of the quality of him. He's never had to really play a lot of these alternative kind of courses. He played the Puerto Rico Open back in 2020. I mean, that was very, very early in his career. He was still 21 years old. He missed the cut there, but other than that, he hasn't played on any of these other courses. So sometimes it's one of those cases of like you just don't know, and then people just avoid him as a result. So I do think he's perhaps a little bit sneaky this week. Spence, can we go in there and steal a pick from Byron and get your revenge in the second round?
I mean, technically, I haven't given Byron the pick yet, so I could just steal Thompson from him and go that way. I don't necessarily think I mean, one player is going to be very popular that I'm going to pick here. And then coming back, hopefully I can get the other one that will not be as popular. I'll go with the popular name first. Obviously, there's a lot of ownership that I've taken on with these first 2 names, but I'm going to take Callum Tarrant at 7,600. You know, for all I've talked about of distance maybe not being the only answer here, there are certain golfers, Davis Thompson being one of them, Callum Tarrant being another, that they have found success on similar comp courses or similar statistical venues that I'm looking for. So easy scoring, he's 8th in my model. When I add those easy to hit fairways plus distance, he's 10th in my model. I think he has the distance that you're looking for. I think the weighted proximity numbers, while they're not exactly what you would want to see, he still has a 21 spot improvement inside of my model for this venue over a generic course. If the irons can be a little bit better than expected, that is the player I was talking about when directly comparing him to Cameron Champ. I bet Callum Tarrant -120 over Champ. So I'm going to go with him with my first choice. I know he's going to be one of the most popular players, but I think there's ways to get unique and different.
Very interesting. I'm personally not on Tarrant this week. I have some concerns about the putter and his ability to consistently go low. We know that he can come out and shoot like an 8 under. I guess I have some concerns whether he can maintain that pace for 4 rounds. He also hasn't got the greatest record on comp courses. I mean, he's got 1/5 at the Puerto Rico Open. Other than that, he's got 3 missed cuts, a DQ, and a 61st at the Mexico Open. So I guess that raises some concerns. I do agree, though, that Tarrant has lifted his game the last 7 to 8 tournaments. So there's always that, that he's got that swing in terms of his recent form. Byron, any comments from you on Callum Tarrant?
I literally had Callum Tarrant highlighted on my screen when Spencer picked him because I was going to grab him on the back. And
so is it a steal?
Yeah, it's a mini steal. I won't admit that it was a full-on theft because you can't steal from a stealer, but it's a good pick. I'll definitely give him that.
Okay, well, there you go. Trying to play down the fact that he definitely got that pick stolen from him, Byron, there. It sounds like he's just trying to play it cool. But audience, we've got some nominations. It looks like we have locked in, thank you to Zach Jeffers, Taylor Pendrith, and perennial favorite of the show recently, Eric Van Rooyen. Dude, you guys explain this to me. I don't know why the books just keep disrespecting Eric Van Rooyen at the moment. Like, it's insane. This guy's been in the top 100 in the world golf rankings. He's got huge talent. We know he's got upside. He's killing it on approach. We know he's completely recovered from his previous injury. And they keep throwing out like 150 to 1, 80 to 1. The dude is in great form. He's just like consistently finishing top 25 or better. He's got a great record at the Dubai Desert Classic as well. I'll throw that out there. There's a really driver heavy course. You have to go low. It's windy. It's coastal as well. A lot of salt and sand, obviously, in desert areas. So he finished 4th there in like one of the best fields in the DP Tour. Yeah, EVR is a great play for me this week. I don't know why they keep disrespecting him. Spencer, any thoughts on Pendrith and EVR?
Yeah, I think EVR is fine for the reasons that you mentioned. And I like Pendrith. I'm actually surprised to see that his ownership's as high as it was. When I wrote my Rotoballer article on Monday, I had him as one of my contrarian players to look for. I kind of compared him to the 1B of what Davis Thompson would be. Both of them are coming in as very popular options. So I don't think you're necessarily going to get that ownership discount on Pendrith, but very similar games from both of those players where they have the distance and the improvement with easy scoring courses. So I like what the audience has done to start their lineup. Like it's going to be probably unique with the way that it's put together right now. I think when you start with the Gala and while Pendrith is going to be popular, I don't see the ownership on Van Rooyen over the top right now. Like I have him at sub 10%. So it's a very unique build of 3 golfers that kind of have the prototypical skill set that you would want to see for one of these sorts of venues out here. So I like what the audience has done to start.
Yeah, I mean, look, Eric Van Rooyen as well. He's gained in a big way on approach, 5 tournaments in a row, and we all know that that's like just a key marker when it comes to your statistical analysis of a golfer is about to pop and just get the putter right, and he's going to come right as well. He's very, very strong off the tee. So, Byron, I'll let Spencer have a little think about where he's going to go with his next pick and steal another one for you. But any thoughts on EVR, Pendrith? If you were between these 2 players, who would you put into your lineup?
Yeah, I feel like EVR is just, grabbing value at that price. Like you said, it's just you immediately getting more salary to spend if you click his name first, right? So at $7,400, you're getting incredible value. And like you said, it's so easy to expect the approach play to be there again this week, like it has been for the last little while. And that's one of the most repeatable things on tour is ball striking. And he's just been sensational in that department. Get him on a different country, feeling a little South African-ish, down in Mexico and a nice little resort. I think he'll have a good time. Especially after South Africa won the World Cup recently. I think the spirits are high on the South African side of things there. There's no New Zealanders in the field, but definitely looking forward to the guys playing well. I love him. And then Pendrith, there's nothing, I don't have a bad thing to say about him either. I think it's a pretty solid pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice of you to bring up the Rugby World Cup again in this Draftcast. I really appreciate that. And look, you make a good point on the South African courses as well, right? Like they have a little bit of Paspalum courses in South Africa, but they do have a lot of Kikuyu, which isn't the worst comp in terms of Paspalum. Yeah. Like Kikuyu is like a lot more similar to Paspalum than Paspalum is to say Bentgrass or Bermuda. So I think that's a good comp to look at as well. Spence, who are we putting in for your third pick, and who are we stealing from Byron?
I don't think this pick is going to be stealing from maybe anybody in this draft. I feel like I need to get a way to get unique a little bit with this build that I have so far. There's a golfer that's made 8 of 9 cuts, very quietly done so because there's not very many top-end finishes that have been thrown into the mix there, but really like the way that he sets up from this course from a statistical perspective. Inside the top 15 of my model from an overall rank, I see him right now at sub 8% at 7,400. I'm going to take Nick Hardy. The putter has seen a massive improvement over his last 24 rounds. Top 10, as I talked about inside my model for strokes gained total at easy to hit fairways. He's 8th when you add distance to the mix to that answer. You give him these slower Paspalum sticky green textures. He jumps to 9th for me. And then inside of the top 15 also for distance and proximity. So I think there may be a little bit more safety here than the general public believes. I know the results have not been the high-end marks that we want, but I thought he was an intriguing bet at 90-1. I think he's an intriguing GPP play. And then to answer Edward's question, no, I am not a Jets fan. I don't put myself through that sort of suffering. Instead, I'm a Raiders fan, which would be probably even worse.
And even worse, I'm a Broncos fan. I literally have my Denver Broncos.
Oh my god!
Before coming on to this show, so we've in terms of NFL selections, pretty poor. In terms of golfing selections, pretty on fire. So Nick Hardy's sneaky, right? Like I think a lot of people are going to go to Chad Rainey there, who's the exact same salary and has got some very, very good form on tropical courses and Paspalum grass courses as well. So I do think Nick Hardy's an interesting way to get different, and he hasn't been dreadful at these comp courses. He's had a 22nd and 13th in his 2 most recent tries, and then a lot of that other form that he has come when he's been at a different stage of his golfing career as well. So I think that's a really sneaky play there from Spencer and a great way to get different. Byron, what say you, and how are we getting back at Spencer for stealing Taron off you?
Yeah, so I've got Nick Hardy as the second best in comp course grading because he played fantastically at LACC, which I have as another comp, because I felt like those fairways really suit this kind of course we're going to be expecting this week. So sign us up for Nick Hardy on a course that's got wide open fairways. Played very nicely there. And like Spencer says, if you're going to be looking for someone to make a bunch of putts, Nick Hardy's your guy. He's one of these dudes that I think last time this year, he was one of the best iron players on the PGA Tour. And now that's not even a thing for him anymore, but he's one of the best putters. It's like if he can just finally get some sort of combination of those two showing up on a course that makes him feel comfortable, I think you don't just lose that forever. It's there in you. You know, at some points it should pop up. So hopefully that does. I really like Nick Hardy this week. He's second in that department for me. So love him. But the guy that's first in my comp course grading is Chesson Hadley at $7,600. Guy balls out at Congaree. I've got another comp there for Congaree, and he's played fantastically there. And then I just took a look here. He's sitting at 122nd on the FedEx Cup points list. We know Chesson Hadley's a big, the hole-in-one to kind of keep his hopes alive when Justin Rose missed that shorty to give him 125th spot on the FedEx Cup points list. He's trending quite nicely when it comes to playing good golf right now in this fall swing, because he really hasn't had the chance to play fall golf trying to keep his card, where that usually ended at Wyndham when he needed those heroics. So I think he's going to be looking to play some good golf, love the comp course situation. And one of my favorite things about Chesson Hadley is the fact that he is 106th in the last 24 rounds around the green in this field. Take that pretty much out of the equation here, and we've got him as a really good, he's 10th in putting, right? So you put him on a putting surface instead of having to chip all the time. Give me Chesson Hadley at 7,600 smacks.
Yeah, look, I do really like Chesson Hadley. He didn't make my betting card this week, but I was very, very close. He was on the short list. I've tipped him previously at Punta Cana, I believe that I had him for the very similar reasons that Byron's just outlined. He won the Puerto Rico Open in back in 2014, very, very early in his career. So there's some great pass balance form right there. He's also got a 16th there. Then at Port Royal, which hosts the Bermuda Championship, he's finished 16th and 17th in 2 tries. And then at the Punta Cana, he's got a 13th as well. So pass balance form just like pops off the page for Chesson Hadley. As he said, around the greens, the weakest element of his game. We don't expect that to be a case this week. I mean, if you're missing greens here, there's bigger problems to your game than that. So I certainly really like the play. Spence, what say you on Chesson Hadley?
I think there's a lot of players. Like, obviously, I took Callum Tarrant, so I also like him, and I'm going to use him. But I think there's a lot of players that are in that range, whether it's a Chesson Hadley. I try to say names that are still on the board. I'll leave them off. But like a Nick Hardy, a Nate Lashley. I think there's ways to pivot off of Tarrant. I think Hadley's an intriguing way to do it. So I like the pick from Byron. I think that he's probably a top 15, 20 play for this tournament.
Well, there you have it. I mean, we all like Chesson Hadley. So I'm not seeing too much ownership on him either. Like, he seems to be like a little lower owned than I would have expected, especially given he finished 7th last time out in Las Vegas. So bear that in mind, he might be a way to get different. I mean, ownership of these courses can really pivot a lot. So in the last 24 hours, make sure that you sign up to WinDaily, get into our Discord, because our resident ownership expert, Stephen Pilati, will be dropping that in there. His ownership numbers are just absolutely fire. They're always supremely accurate. Can find some really nice pivot spots for you in there as well. We do actually have a promotion at the moment over at WinDaily Sports, and it's only $9.99 a week. That's $10 off our usual weekly cost. That's the best deal we've had all year. Does end on Monday. There's a link down in the description for you. But once you're locked into that price, as long as you keep your membership the same, you are locked into that price for the rest of your membership. So make sure that you jump in there and sign up to that promo, because that is a great way to get 50% off all of our premium content. So in terms of my next selection, Akshay Bhatia, again, extremely popular name, but I believe so for good reason. If Nate Lashley is the king of Paspalum, I would say Akshay Bhatia is quickly becoming the prince of Paspalum. He's finished 17th at the Bermuda. He was 2nd at Puerto Rico, 24th at the Punta Cana, and then 4th at the Mexico Open, just behind John Rahm there. So the dude's been absolute fire around these courses. We know that he can go extremely low. He won at the Barracuda. Was the Barracuda? Well, it's a Stableford tournament that rewards birdies and eagles. So if we're looking for a guy who can go out there and just shoot super low, Akshay Bhatia could well be your guy this week. So I'm very, very happy to take him there. I think his price point is fine at 9,200. Worth noting as well that he opened in the markets at 40s. Came into 36s, 35s, 33s. Now he's down at 30s, same as Bo Hosler. So bear that in mind that his DraftKings salary price can't change, but his odds have moved in dramatically as the week has gone on. So do bear that in mind. There's a lot of sharp money coming his way this week, and I think it's for very, very good reason. For my next pick, I'm going to go further down the board. I'm going to take golfer Kelly Craft at 6,800. I think he's one of your better options in the 6,800 range. The guy has excellent pass balance form. Punta Cana, he's finished 3rd, 5th, 14th, and 16th. At the Mexico Open, he finished 15th in 2022 as well. And then at Grand Reserve at Puerto Rico, he's got a 15th there. And he's just been actually hitting his approach much, much better. He's been a big gainer on approach his last 2 tournaments at the Sanderson Farms and Shriners. He's coming in off a run of 25th, 16th, and 23rd. So he's in good form. He's got good comp course form on Paspalum. 6,800, I think he's excellent. Again, we tipped him up at 200 to 1 in the WinDaily Premium Discord. He's since been cut into 125s in some places. So there's a lot of money coming his way too, and he's been cut in quite deeply. So Byron, any thoughts on Kelly Craft or Akshay Bhatia?
Yeah, I think if you're playing Cameron Champ and Akshay in the same lineup in a GPP, you best have the rest of those guys be like off the map, because that's going to be very popular, I think. If you take a look at the tips chart that Golf Tipper or whatever on Twitter has, those are 2 of the biggest 3 tipped guys. Akshay, in my opinion, as well, is a perfect fade opportunity in GPPs because he's boom or bust at these kind of venues, especially. I think, you know, the high upside is there, but he's also not playing very good golf right now whatsoever. You know, so you can show up to a place and get the vibes back, but he has mentioned he's been struggling a little bit mentally and all that kind of jazz. So if he's going to be high owned, I'm easy to get off of him. I've got my outright ticket on him, and I'll just leave it at that. And then, you know, I love Kelly Craft as a great putter on these greens. You know, like if you're going to pick someone in the 6K range, have him have an elite trait, and putting is one of them. So absolutely, Dave, you know, right there with you on Kelly Craft. Love that pick.
What line would you give me on Akshay Bhatia finishing in the top 20 right now?
I would say plus 250, plus 200.
Plus 200?
Yeah.
Do you want to hit a side?
I'm not going to get suckered into that because it's probably going to happen. I've got him as a top 5 for the week, but I'm just saying from a game theory perspective, that's the way to get out of it. You know, like I think
I agree though. I do think that he's got a lot of ownership coming his way, same as Cam Champ. I just think it's for very, very good reason. I think I'm getting a little bit different with Nate Lashley and Kelly Craft there as well. So yeah, hopefully I get some pivot and some ownership discount there. And look, I do think Bhatia is going to play very, very well this week. The terrible form that Byron alludes to is 43rd, 35th, and 21st in his last 3 tournaments. So I don't think it's been absolutely dreadful. And he does love the past Barnum courses here as well. Byron, 4th pick for you. Where are we going, mate?
I'm going to go big, and we're going to figure out the rest from here. But Luke List, $9,000. No one's got him right. I'm also, Spencer, these, usually the glasses I wear are prescription, and these are very tinted and very blurry. But that leaves me, what, $69.50? All right. So we're in the mix. I've got a few guys I don't mind down in the bottom of the 6K barrel. If you told me Luke List would show up on my model and be 19th in putting over the last 24 rounds, I'd tell you you're living in a universe that looks like my suit. And that's not the case because he's been incredible with the putters since he's shown up on the full swing. He's also one of the longest guys on tour. He's a really good birdie maker over the last 24 rounds. He's $9,000. You know, like the guy just won a tournament and he's had 2 top 25s in the other 2 starts. Like the guy's balling out and now goes to a course where he can just send it off the tee. So really like Luke List's chance this week, especially with the fact that his putters seems to be moving in the right direction. Hopefully that last round where he kind of lost a little bit in the last tournament, not that big of a deal, but I think I like where old Luke is moving.
I do too. Just so you know, one of the routes I was going to go for the last 2 picks would have included Luke List as one of those 2 selections. So nice. Not an official steal because I'm still looking at which option I would have gone with in terms of that combination, but certainly do like his chances this week. I agree that his putter's definitely been trending in the right direction, which for Luke List we've known has been, you know, one of the worst putters on tour, the PGA Tour of all time for quite some time. He has been moving in the right direction in that regard. A lot of that has been on power, so I'll just point that out. But on the flip side, past Barlam, slower kind of grass, right? Like it's not going to be as tricky to putt necessarily here as like very, very fast, like icy pink bent grass greens. And his concourses are good. Like Punta Cana, he's at an 8th. He was 11th at the Tournament Champions, 15th at Puerto Rico. So he's got some good form at these other tropical courses with past Barlam. Spence, any comments on Luke List? And then we'll go into your 4th pick straight off the back of that.
I mean, I don't want to spend too long on it just because we're running a long time right now. But I will say it's amazing what Luke List has done with the putter recently. If he can putt to this level, I don't know if this is the best course for him. I kind of think of him more on a venue where like 12 under par is the winner. I don't know if he can make enough birdies to actually win this contest, but keep an eye on Luke List moving forward into 2024. Like we want to give the answer of a Hostler, and obviously we've seen it a little bit from Thagala recently. If these guys have made turnarounds with the portions of their game that ended up being a problem for them, Luke List has real potential. Like I don't want to give the Wyndham Clark example, just like you didn't want to, David, but there's real potential here for Luke List moving forward. Totally
agree. Where are you going with your 4th pick here, Matt?
So there's one of 2 options I was considering, and I don't think, I mean, unless this goes really rogue for me down the stretch of how the picks go off the board, I'll name both of them. I don't think it necessarily hurts the show. I think Vincent Whaley is intriguing. I think Michael Kim is intriguing. I probably can only fit one of these 2 in with the way I'm going to round out this build right now, but I'm going to go with Michael Kim. I guess I'll trust my mauler. I think either one of those 2 routes would be fine. With Kim, you get better driving plus proximity numbers. With Vincent Whaley, you're going to get a better weighted scoring. Kind of take it for what it's worth there, but I'll take Kim at 7,500. I think he's been very solid to start this year with back-to-back top 41 finishes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really liked Michael Kim this week. He was on my short list of players to include, mainly off the back of his Puerto Rico Open performances. He had 5th and a 16th there in his last 2 appearances at that tournament. So he has got some good pass bowling form. And then, yeah, as you said, at the Shriners recently, he was 18th as well. So I do think that that's worth looking at. Bear in mind with the Zozo, right, it's a reduced field. This is actually why I didn't include him in my betting card, was the 41st. The Zozo is on a smaller field where you also get a lot of like Japanese sponsor invites being hosted in Japan. They get a lot of entries into that tournament as well. So it's not necessarily the deepest field. And that was like just enough for me to sway actually to Vince Whaley over Michael Kim, but it was pretty close between the 2 of them for me as well. Audience, it is you on the clock. So do get drafting. And as Zach says, you can't steal from a stealer. Byron Logic, which I really like as a comment there in the chat. So we've got some nominations coming in. So hopefully we see some seconds very shortly from you all in terms of golfers in there that you would like to draft against the experts. And as Zach said, try and steal from a stealer, which at the moment is primarily Byron, a little bit Spence. And I don't think I've stolen from anyone at this stage, but I'll try and do that on the turn if I can. Maybe, Byron needs some discount guys, and I've got tons of salaries, so maybe I just shock him and leave like $5,000 on the table. Who knows? What have we got? Brent, welcome into the chat. You guys are on the clock. We've got Davis Riley. We've got Harry Hall from Zach. Audience, we need a second from you. Otherwise, I'll start picking for you. And I'll pick this time because I don't want Byron rigging this contest any more than he already has.
I thought we already established precedent here, Dave, but I think the audience is going to get their stuff in.
Yeah, we got one. We got Davis Riley at least. So what does that leave us? About 8,100 remaining. Davis Riley, I really like. I think he's got huge upside potential. He's definitely got the game. I mean, he came out and won this year. Interestingly, with Nick Hardy. So if Spence likes Nick Hardy this week, then perhaps you should also like Davis Riley this week as well. There's an interesting link in there. But yeah, I do like his chances this week. Spence, while the audience is trying to think about perhaps having another golfer in their lineup, what do you say on Davis Riley this week?
Yeah, I like Riley. I have no issues. He's a top 30 play for me in pretty much every iteration of how I ran my model. And when you look at some of these par 4 totals for this course, he graded inside the top 15 for me when looking specifically at the length of these holes.
Yeah, and look, Davis Riley hasn't got a heap of form on course comps, so it's a small sample size, but he's played 3 course comps. Puerto Rico, he's finished 39th back in 2021. Again, his game was at a much different stage than it has been in 22 and 23. Then 2022, the Bermuda Championship, he finished 7th. Then in the Mexico Open, he finished 5th. So, I mean, it's pretty premium in terms of the course comps that you're getting, even though it is a very, very small sample size. So, Brandon Wu, it looks like, is the pick. I really like Brandon Wu this week. I think he's an excellent shout. He's one of these guys who's spoken quite openly about his love of pass bowling, that he just loves putting on the grass, that slowing down the putter for him really comes into play. So I think that he's an excellent pick, and we've seen it with his huge number of top 10s at course comps this week. So Spence, I've got no complaints. I'm sure you don't have any complaints about Brandon Wu either, but who are you going with your 5th pick of the draft?
So obviously I have a lot of money left at this point. I'm going to go near the top here. Pretty much every show that we do together, I always want to take Steven Yeager. I'm not going to go that route this week. I'm going to take Cameron Young. I would take Yeager if the build would have allowed me to get to Vincent Whaley. I think that would have been a nice way to round this out with Yeager and Whaley. But I know we haven't seen Cameron Young so far during the fall season, but when you think of a wide open venue that should fit his game at a birdie course where he can rack up birdies in bunches, I think this is an interesting spot where the public is probably not going to play Cameron Young. At least he's going to probably be lower in ownership than the rest of the mix here. So I think it's a nice spot to get contrarian.
Yeah, look, I quite like Cameron Young this week for the reasons that you outlined there. I think OB is going to get the majority of the ownership up top. So I do think you're going to get an ownership discount on him as well as a salary discount getting Cameron Young. It's one of these cases, right? We haven't seen him play since August. So a lot of people will be looking and be like, oh, like, you know, the second half of the year, like Cameron Young wasn't really on fire. But the guy hasn't played competitively for 3 months. So we have no idea what state his game's in. He could be just like absolutely killing it on the range, and you're just getting that value in terms of the ownership pivot there. So I do think he's a decent play this week. I think he's well worth including in your GPP pool, especially in larger contests. Maniac, your second to last pick. You need to find some savings somewhere. Where will you be putting that money?
I'm going to go with a really risky pick here and go with Trevor Cohn, $6,300. He's third in the field in distance off the tee, and he's pretty darn solid from 150 to 200 yards on approach. So one of his biggest weaknesses is around the green, so he's not going to have that. Unfortunately, the other massive weakness is his putting, which we're going to have more of now. But, you know, the guy's going to be bombing it down the fairways. He's $6,300. He makes cuts at 4 out of 10 times he plays a golf tournament. And at $6,300, I'll take that, right? So it's a solid value play there, in my opinion, and then I can get myself to $7,600 and just hope for the best from Trevor.
Yeah, look, I think that if you want to make your lineup different, Trevor Cohn will certainly make your lineup different because he's not going to attract much ownership as well. Certainly, if your narrative is bombers, he'll match in nicely with Luke List and OB there in terms of that narrative as well. Plenty of distance off the tee. He's not going to be in my player pool. I just think that his recent approach play is just really disconcerting for me. But he's a boom or bust character, right? Like, I mean, he could come out and finish top 10, or he can miss the cut completely. And for $6,300, I don't think that's the worst that you could look at within that range there. I might have actually gone Nicholas Echeverria down there at that price range as well. Obviously a previous winner on one of these courses recently too, and I don't think he's been in necessarily the worst form at all. In terms of my two selections on the turn, Emiliano Grillo, one of my favorite plays at the top, and I sort of took a risk in terms of leaving him this late, but I didn't think that anyone else was going to go there. He was 10th recently at the Zozo Championship. Kind of like Luke List, we started to see his putter come round, right? He's been this ultimate ball striker. The putter's really come right for him recently, and his course comps are just awesome. So his Puerto Rico performances have been excellent. He's at his second, a third, and his 11th in his last 3 tries there. Then at Vedanta Vallarta, he finished 33rd and then 5th last year in his performances there. The Punta Cana, he's got a 6th and a 21st. So he's done very, very well at all of these paspalum courses. And find with these Argentinian players, right, Central America, South America, that they've played a lot of paspalum grass before, because you do find it a lot in these hot, humid conditions. So I do think he's going to like the grass, and we've seen his putter improve. So I think that he's got a lot of upside there. Final pick for me would be Chris Kirk, 16th and 29th towards the end of the season last year during the FedEx Cup playoffs. Another of these cases where he's going to be off a lot of people's radar just simply because he hasn't played since the BMW Championship. I don't think that's a bad thing in terms of getting different in terms of ownership, but in terms of his performance, particularly at Kapalua, was what caught my eye. He's got a 7th, 16th, 14th, 24th on that course there. So he hasn't had the biggest aversion to playing on these tropical courses. Obviously, he's been down in Cabo for the last week as well, relaxing and getting into it. And I think coming off a season where he knocked off that win at the Honda Classic, I think that he's got a chance of coming up here and getting some upside. Byron, we're running a little over time, so I'll jump straight into your final pick. You've got $7,600. I think there's some really good options this week in the $7,000 range. So where would you like to spend those dollars?
$7,600, Sam Ryder. Give me one of the best iron plays in the field. He's one of the best iron plays from 150 to 200 yards. He's one of the worst drivers of the ball in the field. Not that big of a deal here. And then the rest of his game can just go from there. I feel like he's always underpriced. He makes tons of birdies. And he's one of my favorite golfers to play.
Well, look, I mean, it's only right in the PGA Draft Cast if Sam Ryder goes off the board, even without Joel here this week being Halloween. So Joel, we know, loves Sam Ryder at the moment. He is a cut-maker machine, so he is incredibly safe, it feels like. And he's got good comps as well. He's third at the Puerto Rico Open and second at Punta Cana. So I do think that he's trending very, very nicely. I have some concern if, like, driving distance ends up being a big thing here, that he's not the longest off the tee. Throw that out there as well. But I think that he's a decent player this week. He's certainly going to be in my pool. Spence, Any thoughts on Ryder? And we'll go into your final pick, and then audience, you'll need to start jumping in and putting your names in there.
No, I'm fine with Sam Ryder as a consideration. And for my final pick, I will go with the second half of the C. Young brother tandem here. I will take Carson Young. I know that there's some distance problems that he's going to bring to the table. It's kind of a similar answer that you just talked about, David, there with Sam Ryder. Obviously, he's a lot cheaper. The current form hasn't been exactly what you want with missed cuts at the Shriners and the Sanderson, but there's a lot of metrics inside my model. At least if I'm looking down in the $6,000 range, like there's probably, I don't know, 5 to 7 guys that show any real semblance of upside for me. Carson Young would be one of them. And a lot of the majority of the guys are either not in my price range. Like I think a Ryan Palmer kind of fits that mix, a Carl Yuan. Those are players I cannot afford. Carson Young puts me right in that point of where it's exactly what I can afford at that moment. So he's been good at easy scoring courses. He's been good at easy to hit fairways. I'm going to bet on that upside, even if the recent form hasn't been great.
I really like Carson Young this week. I think if you're deciding, you've got Kelly Craft down there, you've got Carson Young, and I think they're both very, very viable options. 3rd at the Puerto Rico Open earlier this year and 15th at the Mexico Open as well. So I will throw that out there. And he did miss the cut pretty badly at the Shriners, but before that, he was on the number at the Sanderson and then 19th at the Fortinet as well. So we've seen it with Carson Young before, right? Like around the green, kind of similar answer to what Byron gave earlier in the show. Around the green, we don't think it's going to be a massive factor here, just as it is for Hadley. It's the weakest part of Carson Young's game. If you've got these huge greens and, we're not expecting them to miss many greens, as I said, if that's what's happening, if you're missing heaps of greens, like you're probably not making the cut anyway at this tournament, right? So I do love that from the upside perspective. And audience, Matt Kuchar, surprising pick for me. I don't know that I would have gone down this route. Do bear in mind, we're in a completely different course to Mayakoba. Even though it's the same tournament by name, like this course is like as polar opposite to Mayakoba for me as you could possibly get. So that's a little bit interesting for me. Guys, what can you find on Matt Kuchar? Show me why I'm wrong. I'm completely fading Matt Kuchar this week.
I'll take it first. I kind of like Matt Kuchar. Maybe it's from a contrarian sense of the answer. Like, if we look from, let's say, Dietrich down to Kuchar here, like, I think Dietrich gets you unique. I think Kurt gets you unique. I think Keith Mitchell gets you unique. Obviously, those guys have more of that prototypical skill set that you would be hoping for at this venue, but I kind of think Kuchar's been fine recently. Like, I know the stats are all over the place. If you look at it just from like the last 24 rounds, he is bright red on my model across the board here, but he's good on these slower, like stickier textures of putting surfaces. Obviously, you're going to have to rely on the putter a little bit. The one important thing inside my model that kind of made me like him was just the jump that he saw on these easy to hit fairways. Like, he's not going to be a guy that gives you a bunch of length, but he did jump inside the top 25 of my model when looking at these wide open tests historically. So, I don't know what the upside actually is, but top 20 in my model in weighted scoring, like if nobody's going to play him, I think you could do worse.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're all very valid and interesting points. I guess I have some concerns in terms of being so different to Mayakoba, where he has played well, whether people necessarily just like forget to look at like course form versus tournament form. They just like plug like worldwide technology champ into their model and then get a whole bunch of data, which is just not relevant this week. That would be my concern in terms of any ownership that you get. Byron, anything to say on Matt Kuchar, good or bad?
Yeah, I got 3 things to say. Matt Kuchar is old. I think the fact that he has had lots of time. If you take a look, he plays really well after a break. So I think he's had a lot of time since the Fortinet. Played really well at the Fortinet after a break. He's also a really good par 5 scorer. There's 4 par 5s. And he's also going to have to pay his caddy in Mexican pesos, which are a lot. You can get a lot more of those than dollars, right? So it's going to be a lot easier for him to really tip the caddy. The good vibes are going to be just rolling there. So there's 3 really good reasons to play Matt Kuchar this week.
I particularly like the caddy reason. I think that's probably the prime reason why you should play Matt Kuchar this week, because that's That's excellent. Hey, we will take the draft board down. Those are your teams. They'll be posted on Twitter by Spencer. Spencer, if you can get those teams snapshotted and out onto the Twitter sphere or x.com, whatever we're calling it nowadays, for everybody to enjoy. But before we go, the highlight of the week, every week, is the WinDaily Sports first round leaders. We'll make sure that Spencer and myself drop those into the WinDaily Discord, and then we'll have a guest appearance from Sia. Make sure that he gets his selections in there as well. But before we start, we'll go to our special guest of the week, who we're very grateful every time he joins, even though he steals picks, even though he gives us shit about rugby results. Byron, first round leader, who are we looking at?
Boys, thank you so much for having me on. Always love to be on the show with you guys. Peter Malnati, the guy just comes out of nowhere every now and then, 125-1. Sign me up for him. Henrik Norlander, 100-1. The guys, I really wanted to get him in my lineups. I think he's a great value in the DFS world as well, on these kind of surfaces. Give me Henrik Norlander at 100-1. And then I wanted to also put in Peter Quest at 80-1. I like his chances. Eric van Rooyen at 80-1. And then Sam Ryder at 75-1. And then there was one other guy that I wanted to do that I think was really weird. Sorry, boys. I had him lined up and I wanted to... Peter Quest. Did I just say Peter Quest?
You did.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just roll with those guys. Maybe throw in Davis Thompson at the same time. I think those are all pretty solid picks outside of 50-1.
Nice. I mean, look, and with those names that you named, you've named 8 guys, but they're all priced like super high. And I don't think this is the type of tournament where you necessarily can be opposed to that sort of strategy, right? Because it is such a wide open field, other than like perhaps Obeah and maybe like Tagala and Young, right? Like after them, what's the difference really between a lot of these like 8K guys to like even the high 6Ks? The drop off in form is not as drastic as you perhaps see week to week. So definitely interesting to go and grab some big numbers. Spence, who are you looking at for your first round leader?
Yeah, I think I think any strategy this week makes sense. I decided to go the opposite route. I went near the top of the board with my 3 choices. Cameron Young, 33-1. You can price shop and find that number out there. Steven Yeager, 40-1. Bo Hostler, 40-1.
Nice. There you go.
I like Bo. I like Bo first round.
Yeah, Bo can certainly go out and shoot a low first round. He was first round leader very recently as well. So do bear that in mind that he's recently been getting hot starts on Thursday. I've got one from the top of the board, and it's actually the only choice that I've got from the afternoon with Akshay Bhatia. You give him at 45-1 for first round leader. So considering that he's been cut into 30-1 for the tournament, you might get a bit of value at 45-1 for the first round lead. The rest of my guys are going from the morning. I'm not necessarily seeing a huge edge between morning and afternoon. The wind looks pretty consistent throughout the day. It's just going to be pretty steady. It is a very exposed course, but there's not super high winds so far in my models. The reason I'll probably favor the morning would just be in case of any firmness or dryness that you're going to get as the day goes on, because it is going to be hot and sunny. So if the course ends up getting a lot firmer, maybe it ends up a little bit harder in terms of getting close to those pins. Hopefully you're still hitting the greens, because the greens are just huge. So in terms of my morning guys, I've got 4. I'm back up Michael Kim at 70-1. I've got Harry Hall, the Brit, at 80-1. Eric van Rooyen, I've only got 66-1, but I think there might be some 80-1 out there in the States as well. So do have a shop around on that number. If you can find something better than 66-1, all power to you. And finally, just the triple figure odds, someone we haven't spoken about in quite some time, but a favorite of the show, Austin Smotherman. Austin Smotherman can go out there and shoot really low. Triple figure odds, I think, is generous on him, and he's played very well at tropical courses previously. That's the show. That's a wrap. Those are our first round leaders. As I said, Stiga will be in the Discord at WinDaily Sports, so make sure you signed up to Premium. We've got that promo which ends on Monday. It's the best deal we've had all year. $9.99 a week is insane value. That's not just access to golf. That's NFL, college, basketball, everything. All of our sports are in there. English Premier League, if you like football, jump in there. We've got some great guys working on that as well. So everything, single sports covered. Guys, anything I've missed this week?
No, I mean, happy Halloween to everybody out there who's made it this far into the show. David, a little disappointed that you did not dress up with us, but exciting show as always.
Yeah, I missed the memo about dressing up as a faux rapper. I did miss that. But Kanye West will be back next week. I'm going to be traveling overseas, so I'm going to be actually in the Middle East for a couple of weeks. Part of that, I'm going to be at the DP World Tour Championship for a day or two, so I'll make sure that in the WinDaily Discord, I'm posting some pics and dropping some intel if I do find anything when I'm around the course. But other than that, there's only one thing to do, and that's sports.